Imagine an industry absolutely vital for a nation's food security, for its economic growth, yet something like half its potential is just dormant. Today, we're digging into the surprisingly specific reason why Uganda's rice mills aren't running at full steam, and how one particular detail, really an agricultural detail, might hold the key to unlocking, well, massive economic potential. Our mission here is to connect those dots for you. We're working with a really fascinating research paper. It's called Enhancing Target Product Profiles to Meet Rice Processor Needs for Capacity Utilization in Uganda's Seed Product Market Segments. Quite a mouthful. But the work is by Twine, Connor, Malabayabas, and Olu, and was funded by the CGIAR Initiative on Market Intelligence. That's a global agricultural research partnership, focused on food security. So this isn't just about farming. It's really an in-depth look at how scientific research can tackle these real-world economic challenges directly. And the relevance, I think, is universal. It's about optimizing complex supply chains, making informed decisions that ripple through whole economies, connecting farmers to consumers in really impactful ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And to sort of set the scene for you, let's think about Uganda. It's a country with a rapidly growing demand for rice, definitely. And over the past couple of decades, its domestic supply infrastructure, well, it's expanded significantly. The number of mills jumped from, say, around 645 back in 2012 to over 1,000 by 2018. That's quite a leap. But despite this really impressive growth, the industry faces a significant bottleneck and, frankly, a pretty costly one.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. If you've got growing demand and more mills than ever before, something's obviously not clicking. The paper points to this core issue called capacity utilization. Now, for listeners who maybe aren't deep in industrial economics daily, how would you define that in simple terms?
Right. Good question. Think of it like this.
Hmm.
Imagine a mill has the machines, the space, everything to process maybe 100 kilograms of rice an hour. But in reality, it's only processing 50 kilos.
Okay.
Its capacity utilization is just 50%. It's basically the percentage of its potential milling power that's actually being used.
Got it. Just how much is actually running?
Exactly. And the stark reality in Uganda is, well, it's challenging. Among the millers who are actively getting paddy, either buying it or growing it, to produce milled rice, this capacity utilization figure is incredibly low.
How low are we talking?
On average, it's hovering around just 47 to 50% of their installed capacity.
Wow, only half.
Yeah. And some broader estimates, they suggest it could even be as low as 41%.
Oof.
And the economic consequences of that situation, they're severe, and they really spread out. First, it directly pushes up the per unit cost of milling. Makes sense, right? Fixed costs spread over less output.
Mm-hmm.
That higher cost then inevitably leads to higher retail prices for the rice produced domestically.
Right. So what happens then?
Well, local rice becomes less competitive against imported rice, which often comes from places with lower production costs or maybe subsidies.
I see.
And furthermore, this underutilization, it acts as a pretty significant barrier for new millers who might want to enter the market.
So it kind of protects the existing players, potentially.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
It can foster less competitive behavior within the industry that's already there. And just to give you a sense of scale here, 97% of Uganda's rice mills are actually small scale. Their average installed capacity is around 844 kilograms per hour. That's a huge amount of potential just sitting idle.
It really is. It's like having a factory operating at half speed every single day, a constant drain.
Exactly. A drain on resources, on potential profits, on the whole sector's growth.
So we've established rising demand, more mills, but this massive underutilization, it feels really counterintuitive. Why isn't this capacity being fully leveraged?
It is counterintuitive, and that's precisely the core issue this research wanted to get to the bottom of. It's a fundamental mismatch, and it's not just about the total amount of paddy demanded versus supplied. That's part of it, sure, but crucially, it's a mismatch in the quality attributes of the paddy that's available to the millers.
So it's not just any rice, it's the right kind of rice they need.
Precisely. This problem highlights a really vital point. Millers aren't just looking for volume. They're looking for specific characteristics in the rice that make their operations more efficient, smoother, and ultimately, more profitable. And that realization leads us straight into the heart of this research, trying to understand what kind of rice truly makes that tangible difference for these millers.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The study didn't just look at rice broadly. It specifically investigated different rice varieties and their grain qualities. What exactly were the researchers trying to pin down here?
Exactly. They were trying to pinpoint which specific varieties, and maybe even more granularly, which inherent traits within those varieties actually lead to higher milling capacity utilization.
Yeah.
They did this by developing and assessing something called target product profiles, or TPPs.
TPPs. Okay, what are those exactly?
Think of them as blueprints. They outline the ideal set of traits for new crop varieties.
Mm.
But critically, not just from the farmer's perspective,
Mm.
things like yield or disease resistance, which are important, but also considering the needs of the processors, the millers in this case, and even consumers further down the line. This study really aimed to close a pretty significant information gap about what millers actually prefer, because historically, that perspective has often been overlooked in breeding programs.
That makes sense. Focusing only on the farm gate misses a big part of the picture.
It really does. So the research identified 5 distinct rice seed product market segments within Uganda. These segments are defined by a whole range of characteristics. Things like the final consumer product type. Is it a long, soft grain, a long, firm grain? Its color. Also, the specific environment it grows best in lowland, upland, maybe drought-prone areas.
Okay.
The cultivation system used, like rain-fed transplanted versus direct-seeded, even how long it takes to mature. And it's really important to remember here that the lowland environments, particularly the rain-fed ones, they contribute something like 75% of Uganda's total rice production. It's huge.
Wow, 3/4.
Yeah. So to get this data, the researchers did a nationwide survey, covered 485 mills. They focused particularly on the 139 that are actively milling and selling the rice themselves. And then they used some pretty sophisticated statistical analysis, but quantile regression, specifically to find clear links between specific varieties or their traits and this key metric, capacity utilization.
Okay, so if these TPPs are outlining the ideal, what's the current reality? What are millers actually working with most of the time right now?
Well, the current landscape shows that the local varieties, specifically names like Supa and the Kaiso series, are the most commonly milled. About 67%, 2/3 of millers work with these. They're generally seen as the market standards.
Okay, the default choices, basically.
Kind of, yeah. In contrast, you have improved varieties like the Nerica ones. They're only milled by about 7% of millers. And another improved variety, WA09, is used by an even smaller group, only about 6%.
Huh. So given how common Supa and Kaiso are, you might naturally assume, okay, they must be pretty central to achieving high-capacity utilization, right? But the study found something quite surprising, didn't it? That the most common isn't necessarily the most efficient.
Indeed. And this is where the research delivers, I think, a major insight. It really shifts the perspective. Among all the different varieties they looked at, the study unequivocally revealed that only UPA9 is significantly associated with greater milling capacity utilization.
Only WITA 9 out of all of them.
Only WITA9 showed that statistically significant positive link. It's a powerful, measurable finding, and it points towards a clear path for improvement.
That is a truly significant finding. Wow. So what is it about WITA 9? What makes it so special? What are its specific traits? And why does it boost efficiency so much compared to these more common varieties like Supa and Kaiso?
Well, WITA9 is quite a standout for several reasons. It was released back in 2014, and since then it's become quite popular among farmers, particularly because, as we touched on, it thrives in those rain-fed lowland ecologies.
Right, the ones covering that huge 75% of production.
Exactly. Agronomically, it's a medium maturity variety. It produces grains that are long and slender, and they have this desirable soft texture. From a farmer's view, it's also high yielding, often hitting 5-6 tons per hectare, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows high tolerance to key diseases, like the rice yellow mottle virus. So farmers like it.
Okay, good for the farmer. But what about the miller? What's the connection to their efficiency?
And here's the crucial detail. This is what directly impacts the millers in that capacity utilization number. Our data from this study shows that millers working with WAA9 report the highest average milling recovery, an impressive 82%.
82%. Compared to what? What was the average again?
The sample average across all varieties was only 68%.
Wow, that's a huge difference. 82 versus 68.
It's massive. What it means in practical terms is for every kilogram of paddy rice, that's the raw stuff with the husk that goes into the mill, a significantly higher proportion comes out as finished, milled rice when they're using WATA9.
So less waste, more sellable product from the same amount of input.
Precisely. It's not just about a good yield in the field. It's literally converting more of that raw material into the product they actually sell. That jump from 68% average to 82% for WITA 9. That's a direct measurable boost to their bottom line, isn't it?
Absolutely. It makes total sense why that would increase utilization. They're getting more value out of the time and energy spent milling.
Exactly. It truly makes WITA 9 a potential game changer for these millers. And it shows such a clear connection between breeding for specific traits and tangible economic benefits for the processors.
Did the study find anything else about other specific grain characteristics like shape or aroma influencing capacity utilization beyond OEI9?
You're absolutely right. The study really digs into that, highlighting the power of these intrinsic grain attributes. It found, for instance, that milling medium grain non-aromatic rice was associated with about an 18% increase in capacity utilization for some segments of millers.
Okay, medium grain, non-aromatic.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And perhaps even more strikingly, milling medium grain aromatic rice was linked to a 20% increase for other miller segments.
So medium grain seems to be a key shape. Both aromatic and non-aromatic versions showed benefits.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Imagine the ripple effect. Imagine if every single step of a food supply chain, from the farm right to your table, was optimized with this kind of deep market intelligence. What other hidden efficiencies, what other bottlenecks could we uncover in the complex systems that feed us all every day? And how might finding those actually change our world?
That's a powerful thought to end on. This exploration really drives home how precision knowledge, how really digging into the details, can transform seemingly complex problems into clear pathways for progress. It reinforces the huge value, I think, of taking these deep dives into any topic.